Hi, I'm Rob,
And I'm Andres.
and today we are working with BBC School Report.
We will be doing an exclusive interview with Sir Jackie Stewart, a triple-time Formula One champion.
You may not know this about him. He really struggled at school.
So he's kindly answered our questions from all the way in Switzerland, and this is how it goes.
Growing up at school, how hard did you find learning?
My school life was a nightmare. I'm an extreme dyslexic. I can't read or write correctly. I don't know the words of my national anthem, and I don't know the words of the Lord's Prayer. I am really dyslexic. So my school years were unquestionably the most unhappy of my entire life, because my teachers had no knowledge about dyslexia. They just thought I was stupid, dumb and thick. You get an inferiority complex, and because the teacher sometimes abuses you in the class mentally, it moves from the classroom to the playground. So everybody's unhappy with you and everybody's taking the mickey out of you. So it was a very unhappy time of my life. I left school at the age of 15, best thing I ever did, and luckily I found sport.
Was there a disadvantage? Did your teachers give any sympathy for you?
I did feel disadvantaged because I couldn't do the things that all the other kids in the class could do, and I had a class of 53 people. And if you look at the general average in those days, it was 10% of the population had dyslexia. So that means there were 5 of us in a class of 54, basically, who were the idiots. We couldn't do the things that all the so-called clever ones could do. My teacher would bring me up to the front of the class and say, read a little bit from this essay, and I couldn't do it. It was looking like a jungle in my hands, the book. I just couldn't read it. And of course they would all cough and laugh and so forth. And that moved from the classroom to the playground. And the teachers in those days didn't seem to have any idea that there were any learning disabilities such as dyslexia. So it was a very unhappy time, and it was mental abuse to me, and I just made friends with the other dummies, so to speak, and it wasn't a good time. I hung out with the wrong people, and my father used to always tell me, if you fly with the crows, you're liable to be shot at, because crows are vermin. If you soar with the eagles, you're above shot. So if you hang out with the wrong people, it's bad news and it gets you into trouble. So that's something to remember.
What inspired you to become an F1 driver when you were young?
I had a big brother. He was 8 years older than I. We were only 2 in the family. He became a racing driver. And at that time, he might have been 18, 19 years of age, so I was only 10 or 11 years of age. To see my brother drive racing cars and be able to go with him after these 2 or 3 years and get the autographs of some of the best racing drivers in the world, I just thought it was magic. And I've still got that autograph book today. So that inspired me, if you like, but I never thought I was going to be a racing driver. I was going to be a shooter. And I was a mechanic in a garage, and a very wealthy young man in Glasgow, whose family wealth was high. The foundations of that wealth, the trustees wouldn't allow him to race. So he had lovely cars, fast cars, and he brought them to the garage that I worked in as a mechanic. I prepared the cars for other people to drive, and eventually he said, as a little reward for all your hard work and how well you do everything, keep the car so clean, why don't you do a small race? I did a small one, I finished second. And he said, oh, maybe you should do another one. And I won it. And from that point, it was like a rocket ship. But because I was dyslexic, I think I put more into the effort of trying to win, working with mechanics, finding the best mechanics. Because when you're dyslexic, there's a lot of things you can't do. So you find the best talent around you. It makes you look better, I had more reliability. And to finish first you must finish. And that takes good mechanics and engineers. So I had the best. And I learned to do that because of my dyslexia. I didn't want a bunch of idiots being my mechanics, because wheels would fall off and cars would fail and I would have retirements from the race. You can't win if you don't finish. So my dyslexia taught me an awful lot of good things, of finding new ways of doing business, not just like the so-called clever folk.
You suggest are the ones to watch in this year's Formula One season?
I suppose Verstappen, because he's so young. He had such a good season this year, showing he was very competitive, but so also has Carlos Sainz, two young, very young drivers. Sainz could improve in this season, and it may be that Verstappen may not have quite as good season as he had this season. However, in the real watching sense, I would have to say Vettel.
What's your thoughts on the new upcoming F1 season, and who do you think will win?
I hope that this season is going to be a lot more competitive than last season. It would be great if Ferrari actually were able to beat the Mercedes team and of course the Red Bull team. I think it would be better for Ferrari to win this year's World Championship, because the general public love Ferrari in general. So that would be good.
Being dyslexic, do you think that it has inspired you to be where you are today?
Being dyslexic was such a bad time in my life that when I found something that I was good at, and that was shooting, clay pigeon shooting, clay target shooting. At the age of 14, I suddenly became a very good shot and was winning a lot of competitions. That gave me an immense amount of personal gratification, personal lift, if you like, because for once I was good at something, because at school I had been such a disaster. So I left school at the age of 15, very young age, but that was the earliest I could have left school. And I went on to shoot for Scotland and then Great Britain, the World Championships and all around the world. And suddenly I had some self-esteem. And when I was 23 years of age, I couldn't afford to do shooting because it was an amateur sport, and get married to my wife Helen. And I started to drive racing cars, and suddenly I became good at it. I have no idea why. It was a natural gift of God, if you like. But because I was good at shooting, I had to make myself very good. So I put an enormous amount of personal interest, personal conviction, tried harder than most people, because I had been a failure for so long at school. Just to have success was an enormous achievement in my mind, even if there were little events. So when you're dyslexic, you need to find something that you're good at. It may not be sport, but if you're good at attention to detail, and that costs nothing, that doesn't mean to say you have to be Einstein. And by the way, Einstein was dyslexic. But you would be a good window cleaner, or you'd be a good floor cleaner, or you'd be good at something that everybody else thinks is the menial task division. I was very good at cleaning windows, very good at cleaning floors, and that gave me praise from those people who I was doing it for. So when you are dyslexic, find something that you're good at. It doesn't matter how menial it appears. If you're better at brushing around the garden or the roads or the pavements, do it, but become the best. Because if I hadn't been world champion at driving racing cars, I'll bet you would have won the world championship at cleaning windows.
What does it feel like being knighted? Did you ever think you would be?
The knighthood that Her Majesty gave to me was one of the biggest things in my life. I would never have dreamed of getting a knighthood. When I was such a failure at school and had such an inferiority complex, I could never have imagined getting a knighthood. So when Her Majesty gave me first an OBE, that's an Officer of British Empire, and then a good bit later gave me my knighthood, it was a fantastic feeling just to be given that, particularly under the auspices of Her Majesty the Queen. So, that's it, Robert and Andreas. I hope that gave you some of the answers that you're looking for. And by the way, I hope that it helps some of you in that class who might be dyslexic or have learning problems. Don't give up. Just find something that you're good at and really work at it.
Thank you, Sir Jackie Stewart.
And this was our school report.